Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Here We Go podcast. I'm your host, Trent Ging. Today we're going to be talking about the edge rushers, but before we get into that, the Madden trailer drops, and I don't know if they've got some Browns fans or some Ravens fans or whatever working over there, but there was some clear trolling going on as they had Justin Fields opening the game trailer returning a kick. That's just not going to happen, folks. But nevertheless, it's fun. It's something you can laugh at. I thought it was some pretty high level trolling on their end because it was clearly a report that has been debunked at this point. There's just no chance he's returning kicks. So it was a fun little topic to kind of start this thing off with. But let's dive right into the topic at hand here. And I think the first statement is going to be the most obvious statement of this entire thing. The Pittsburgh Steelers have one of, if not the most dynamic pass rush duo in the league. But they're not just pass rush specialists. Both TJ and Alex are good against the run in their own right. So I think they make the best tandem at edge in the NFL. If not, they're definitely up there. I mean, I don't know who else you're going to put in the. And I don't. Za'Darius Smith is not the pass rush guy that he used to be to me. So I mean, you could use him as his name gets him some pedigree, but his production doesn't follow. So, while Myles Garrett gets all the credit for the almost sacks, Za'Darius Smith had 5.5 sacks and not many almost sacks. So if we want to look at it that way, I just don't think he's the pass rush guy that he used to be. Age is playing a factor at this point. And that duo is on the board simply because Myles Garrett's on the team. That's my opinion there. I've seen them. I've seen the Cowboys. Micah Parsons obviously is going to be a big reason for that. But TJ Watt is like no other in the NFL. For a couple of reasons. I mean, the Steelers are still one of the few teams hanging on to the 3-4 defense. And it works for them. And TJ's the perfect player on the edge in this 3-4 defense. I mean, he leads the league in sacks. Basically every single year he finishes healthy. Even when he misses a game or two. He leads the league in sacks. I mean, call it whatever you want. Argue however you want. He's the best pass rusher in the NFL, period. He lines up out in that wide 9. And Myles Garrett gets all this credit from PFF for all the almost sacks that he has. And he gets double teamed and this and that. They play two totally different positions. Two totally different positions. They are not the same player. They're not the same mold. They're not even remotely close to the same size. I mean, they're two totally different players. And it's honestly, I know we do it, and we're going to do it until they retire. But it's a little unfair to each guy to compare them to the other guy. Now, I think the Micah Parsons comparison and TJ Watt comparisons are fair, even though Micah's much younger. But that's at least a fair comparison. Myles Garrett is in a 4-3. He's definitely on the edge, or 4-2-5, I think is what they run now in Cleveland. He's on the edge where you can double team him more frequently because of the lineup and the formations. TJ Watt, being in that 3-4, you have 5 guys on the defensive line. They don't bring all 5 guys every time. But you have 5 guys on that defensive line. It makes it more difficult for a team to identify how they're going to double team somebody out wide. So what do? They do adjust to it. Now, let's not pretend that TJ Watt is one-on-one all the time, as many fans who hate TJ Watt tend to do. You're going to line a tight end up over top of him, so he has to get pushed further out. You're going to chip with that tight end. You're going to bring a running back over. You're going to chip with that running back and try to have the running back help in pass protection against TJ Watt. And then you're still going to find ways throughout the game to try to draw up double and triple teams against him. And they just hope the other guys aren't going to beat your guys. He doesn't get double teams at the rate that Myles Garrett does, but I guarantee you he's not seeing one-on-one type scenarios all the time. He finds ways to affect a game in a way that other players in the NFL just can't do. That's what makes him so special, is he seems to have a switch that he can turn on, and I can compare him to how Michael Jordan used to flip a switch when he played in the 90s. At some point when he knew his team needed him, he would flip this internal switch and he would take over a game. TJ Watt does that too. Now, he's not Michael Jordan of football. I mean, I'm not trying to go that far, but I think the way that he has the ability to turn it on in a moment, like a big moment, when he knows it's a game-changing type moment, man, he flips that switch and he gets that play more often than not. And that is what separates him from the rest of the pack to me. The only guy I think who has that ability and hasn't figured it out yet is Micah Parsons. I mean, Myles Garrett, he's not shown up in any of their playoff games they've been in. He doesn't show up in big moments. He's a great player in his own right, but he doesn't show up in big moments. Nick Bosa is a great player, but I've not seen him flip that switch. Max Crosby, I think Max Crosby has a little bit more potential for that than people realize. But I mean, he's all about effort, motor, and the guy's just on the field all the time. He doesn't take plays off. He doesn't sit out. He's always on the field. But that's kind of your cream of the crop guys right now, right? But none of them do what TJ Watt does. And he finds ways to affect the game in so many different ways. It's not just the pass rush. He'll get a big stop on a third down carry by knifing through and getting a tackle for a loss. He drops into coverage. Sean McVay said it best. I mean, the game against the Rams was the prime example. The guy is so good, you game plan around him. You change your game plan for TJ Watt. And you think you have a good game plan going. You can't stop any of these guys. The guys that I mentioned are the guys you're game planning around. You can't stop them. You know that going in. They're going to make plays. They're going to get theirs. You just need to limit how effective they are. And he thought he had a pretty good plan against TJ Watt, and then he drops into coverage. And as a defensive coordinator and a head coach, anytime 90 drops into coverage, there's got to be a sigh of relief. So he drops into coverage in what looked to be a zone scheme for him. But I'm not sure if he was just reading the play or if he was truly in his zone scheme, because I saw the guy on the backside, the slot corner, was trailing in coverage like it was man. And TJ jumps the route from that crossing receiver, intercepts the ball and takes it inside the 5. And Sean McVay's like, I mean, what are you going to do with this guy? It's a big moment, a big play, and here he goes. He intercepts the pass, takes it back down inside the 5. Rams had just gotten momentum before halftime. And here he comes. He makes a big play. I mean, he knows how to attack the ball. I don't think he even looks for a tackle anymore. He just tries to find a way to get that ball on the ground or in his hands. He's playing chess while the rest of the league is playing checkers. That's what makes him the greatest player on defense in the world. He creates a ton of turnovers. He creates a ton of sacks, creates a ton of pressures. And every year he has fumble recoveries. He has interceptions. He'll score a touchdown every once in a while. There's just not enough time in any single episode that you could talk and cover what TJ Watt does. He's the best player in the world. So let's move on to Robin, as TJ Watt is clearly the Batman. Now, I hear Alex Highsmith being named Robin all the time. I think it's actually a little unfair to Alex Highsmith, because I think if you take him off this team and put him on just about, I think you can make an argument that he's the best edge rusher on 2/3 of the teams in the league. I don't think that's an overstatement. Excuse me. So why would you call this guy Robin? He's very, very talented and very good in his own right. The year before last season, he had 14.5 sacks. Or 14 sacks. Now, last year, the sack number dropped a little bit, but his pressures, if you're a PFF guy, his pressure rate was actually higher. He affected more plays. And he still had solid production. It's not like he didn't do anything. And he's consistently gotten better against the run. He's also a guy who's shown when TJ Watt's not there, he's capable of stepping in, being that number one guy. It's exactly why Pittsburgh paid him. We didn't pay Bud Dupree. We paid Alex Highsmith. Bud Dupree, a lot of people wanted to get a second contract. Pittsburgh didn't see him as valuable. And they thought, we can draft another guy. And people were in an uproar, and you're not going to find a guy who's going to play like Bud Dupree has this year, and blah, 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 blah. Here comes Alex Highsmith, and here's the Pittsburgh Steelers saying, we know how to draft outside linebackers. So I think that shows you exactly where the team feels Alex Highsmith is and exactly how good he is. That this team, who is known for drafting outside linebackers, who feel like they can replace just about anybody at that position because they have throughout the history of the franchise, said, no, we need to hang on to him. We have something special here. We're going to lock him and TJ Watt up and keep them together for a little while. And that second contract for Alex, in a big contract, it wasn't like they paid him chump change. And he certainly shouldn't have accepted chump change. That said more to me about his value than anything else. Because this team and this franchise knows they can draft outside linebackers. This guy was somebody they didn't want to replace. Think about some of the plays he made last year. Big strip sack against the Browns. Big interception against the Browns to start the season off. That spin move he has, that thing's killer. And he's learned each year more and more how to use it in the right spots, in the right moments, so that he's not overselling it all the time, but he's learning to set it up. And it's making it more effective. I think Alex has another big year this year. If this defense can stay healthy, Alex has another big year this year. I think he's a guy that you feel comfortable. Nobody replaces TJ Watt, so don't take this the wrong way. But he's a guy we've seen do it before, and you feel like he can do it again. He can replace TJ Watt and give you some of that production. And in the games that TJ has missed, Alex has really stepped up. And he's taken on that role of being the guy. He's not shied away from it. So it's not he's just getting the benefit of the doubt because he's opposite of TJ Watt. Does he get a little bit of that? Yeah. Anybody's going to get that. But he's good in his own right, regardless of who lines up across from him. We have the best edge tandem in the NFL, in my opinion. That's not being a homer. That's just being realistic. Now the question becomes, what's behind him? And like so many other positions on this team, as we're going through a rebuild without fully going through a rebuild, and I'm not sure that gets talked about a lot, but we really have been going through a rebuild. We've revamped so many positions. Outside linebacker really hasn't been one of them. But you get Nick Herbig in the draft last year. A lot of conversations about should he move inside? Should they keep him outside? He's a little small to be on the outside. And rightfully so. He is smaller than both TJ and Alex. He's very athletic, though. I mean, there's probably a chance he could have played inside. Never done it before. We wouldn't know unless you see it. Inside linebacker is a very instinctual position too, and it's not something that you can just be athletic at. You have to be instinctual, and it's just something that it's learned. It's something that's kind of innate in you. So you can learn it to some degree, but you're not going to really. I mean, you either kind of have that position or you don't. So he stays on the edge as a rookie. Becomes a core special teams guy. Plays really well on special teams. He was our number 4 guy last year, with Marcus Golden being the number 3. But I'll tell you what, when they put that kid on the field, he made things happen. He did get the benefit of the situational football, I guess. So he was in on passing situations primarily. He knew he could pin his ear back and just kind of go. But you know what? Going back to what I said about Patrick Queen last episode, you can only do what you're asked to do. And when he was on the field and he was asked to go get the quarterback, he did it very well. He had a few sacks, forced fumble. He was making plays and very limited spot duty. He's going to be our number 3 this year. I don't think there's any question about that. I don't think there's even a competition for number 3, despite the fact he's going into his second year and he didn't play a lot last year. I still think he's the lock as a number 3 because of the potential he was showing last year. And I think they expect growth from him going into this year. I'm excited for him. I like the kid. I like him as a player. I like his motor. I like the fact that he's a sponge trying to learn from TJ Watt. They've worked, together here and there, and he's picked TJ's brain back to when he was with Wisconsin. I like him a lot. I was high on him his rookie season, probably a little higher than others were. But you could just see there was something about him that he knows how to get underneath offensive linemen. And he knows how to keep their hands off of him. And if they get their hands on him, he's done because he is very, very undersized for that position. But he's shown he can work with him. I just don't know how he's going to do if one of the top 2 guys get hurt and he has to do it for a full game for a long period of time. Because I wonder if he gets swallowed up in the run game a little bit. We didn't see a lot of that last year. They tried to play Golden a lot whenever the running it was a clear running situation. Excuse me. But it'll be interesting to see what Nick Herbig does in his second season. So I think he's a talented kid. Now, I also think behind him, the cupboard's pretty bare. We have David Perales, who, quite honestly, I see as more of a practice squad type guy. I actually just saw a report come out today. Somebody wrote an article saying he tried to slim down a little bit so that he could play more special teams to try to make the roster. There's got to be a fourth here. Could he make a push there? Possibly. Jeremiah Moon is an athletic guy they brought over from Baltimore at the end of last season. Could he make the roster? He's another kind of undersized guy. Possibly. I think the most likely scenario playing out here is we're going to add some pieces as we get into training camp. And I fully expect this position to be one that we add a piece to. I feel like you have to add a veteran guy. I would love to bring Golden back. I don't know if he sees himself as a 4 at this stage in his career. If he still wants to be a guy who can get on the field a little bit more, I'm not sure where he views himself. And that would be the piece that may or may not make sense for him. But if you could bring a guy like that back, I think it makes sense for the team. And I thought he played pretty well last year, to be perfectly honest with you. He gave you a little bit of pass rush and spot duty. I thought he played the run pretty well, as I mentioned before, with him being on the field in primary run situations. I think you're comfortable bringing a guy like that back. But you do have to get a guy who's got a little bit of a bigger frame to him, just in case of injury, where you do need to kind of do more of a rotational basis with Nick Herbig and somebody to play the run. I would really like to see them bring a different body type in sometime through camp here to be the number 4 on this team. I don't know what the depth is going to be. I don't trust a Jeremiah Moon. Maybe he turns into something. I know he's played 12 games for the Ravens. Limited snaps. I don't think you trust a guy like that. Perales has never played. You can't trust a guy like that. Herbig going to his second season. Can you fully trust him to be just the primary backup who plays the majority of the reps when TJ and Alex need a blow, or if one of them get injured? I think you like the kid, but I don't think you trust him. Not for full-time duties. So I fully believe they're going to bring in another guy. I fully believe they're going to bring in another body type, a bigger guy. It'll be interesting to see who that may be. Is it going to be a familiar face? Or are we going to go in a different direction and pick up a guy we've never had before? I don't know. But at the end of the day, what you can look at with this room is we have the best edge tandem in the NFL, in my opinion. If they're not the best, they're third at worst. So if you look at their ceiling and their floor, it's first or third. It's not very far apart. This room is probably the least exciting to talk about on the defensive side of the football. Tomorrow, I'm going to probably talk about the most controversial right now, which is what in the world are we going to do at corner short term and long term. So I hope you all tune into that episode. If you enjoyed this one, feel free to like and share. Leave some comments. Give me some feedback. Tell me your thoughts. I'd love to hear them, especially if you differ from anything I'm saying. And have a great day.